Picture this. The year is 1100 AD. A massive city rises in the American heartland, a metropolis built entirely of wood and earth. But what was it actually like here? Not as a chief, but as an ordinary person in our greatest lost civilization. Forget the nomadic myths. Forget the lonely prairies. We are talking about the real America, the smoke in your lungs, the corn on your table, the sun that rules your entire life. From dawn to midnight, this is what life was actually like in ancient Cahokia. Before we begin, please note that all the images and video footage in this episode were brought to life using artificial intelligence. However, every single detail has been meticulously researched and verified against trusted historical sources. We promise there are no wild fabrications here. If this is your first time watching, or if you have been here before but forgot to subscribe, please take a second to hit that like and subscribe button so you will not miss our next journey. Dawn breaks over the freezing American bottomlands. The air bites at your skin as you wake up shivering on a woven reed mat. You are 30 years old, a master shell carver. Your back already aches from yesterday's grueling labor. You look around your home. It is small, cramped, built just for your family. There are no stone walls here, no grand marble pillars. Your house is built from wooden posts driven deep into the Illinois soil. The walls are wattle and daub, a thick mixture of mud and prairie grass slapped together by your own hands to keep the bitter winter wind out. Above you, a heavy thatched roof traps the lingering smoky heat from last night's hearth. It smells like damp earth. It smells like survival. You push aside the heavy hide covering your doorway and step out into the pale morning light. The icy chill hits the bottom of your lungs. But you are not alone, not even close. Outside, the city is already breathing. Thick gray smoke rises from thousands of cooking fires. It stings your eyes. It coats the back of your throat with the taste of ash. You walk down the hard dirt path toward the center of town. To your left, the mighty Mississippi River flows relentlessly southward. It is the lifeblood of this sprawling empire, the great liquid highway of the ancient American continent. Canoes are already launching into the freezing water. Hunters, traders, fishermen, all moving in a perfect, chaotic rhythm. You hear the steady thud of wooden mallets, the shouting of your neighbors, children chasing stray dogs through the narrow alleys between the houses. Every single inch of space is occupied. This is not a temporary hunting camp. This is a permanent, sprawling urban grid. Rows upon rows of identical mud-plastered homes stretch much farther than your eyes can see. But here is where it gets truly hard to comprehend. This settlement covers 4,000 acres. We are standing just across the river from modern-day St. Louis, right in the middle of the North American heartland. You are navigating the bustling streets of a megacity at its absolute peak. Between 10,000 and 20,000 people live right here. They share the same air. They walk the same beaten paths. They depend entirely on the same harvest. It is a staggering concentration of humanity, a level of urban density that completely defies everything you were ever taught about indigenous life before European contact. The sheer logistics of feeding and housing this many people in one single place requires absolute mastery of the environment. There is organized city planning. There are distinct, bustling neighborhoods. There are massive defensive walls protecting the perimeter. As you weave through the morning crowd of farmers and artisans, you realize you are part of something truly monumental. Right now, in the year 1100, this mud brick metropolis buzzing around you is actually larger and more densely populated than London. You keep walking until the morning sunlight completely disappears. A massive, suffocating shadow swallows the dirt street. You are standing at the very base of Monks Mound. It is the absolute center of your universe. You tilt your head back, way back. The earthen behemoth rises 100 feet into the freezing morning air. At the highest flat terrace sits a grand wooden temple. That is the exclusive domain of the Sun Falcon, the supreme ruler of this sprawling empire, the living embodiment of the cosmos. He is up there right now, surrounded by elite priests. They are performing the sacred morning rituals, speaking directly to the sky, burning offerings to ensure the sun continues its vital journey across the heavens. You cannot actually see him from down here. You are just a commoner in a highly stratified world. But you feel his power pressing down on you. It feels just as heavy as the frozen earth you stand on. You unconsciously rub your lower back. The dull, throbbing ache is a permanent reminder of this monumental structure. You helped build it. Everyone you know helped build it. You remember the grueling, endless days of hauling heavy woven baskets filled with wet soil. Basket after heavy basket, step after agonizing step up the steep, muddy incline. Your spine permanently compressed from the relentless weight. Your hands raw, bleeding, and calloused from the rough plant fibers. It is the price of living in the greatest city on Earth. How massive is this artificial dirt mountain? Let us put its staggering scale into proper perspective. The base alone covers 14 sprawling acres of the American bottomlands. That is a structural footprint significantly larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you laid it out today, it would easily eclipse the biggest professional football stadiums in the country. Over 22 million cubic feet of meticulously packed soil make up this singular monument. And here's the brutal, mind-bending reality of its ancient construction. There were no draft animals, no horses to pull heavy wooden carts, no oxen to drag massive sledges, no iron shovels to break the hard, unforgiving earth, no pulleys, no wheels of any kind, none. Every single ounce of this colossal pyramid was dug, carried, and packed by human hands, over and over again, decade after decade, generation after generation. It is a terrifying monument to absolute obedience and unimaginable physical endurance. The ruling elite demanded it from the heavens. The exhausted commoners delivered it from the dirt. It cements a strict, unforgiving social hierarchy written directly into the physical landscape. The closer you are allowed to live to the Great Mound, the higher your social status. You live far out by the defensive wooden palisade walls, far from the geographic center, far from the divine presence. But wait, here's where it gets truly interesting. This massive earthwork is not just a blunt symbol of raw, unchecked power. It serves as the geographic anchor for a highly advanced, mathematically precise society. Midday. The sun is directly overhead, relentlessly baking the hard dirt of the plaza. You finally set down your flint tools and wipe the sweat from your brow. It is time to eat. You find a small patch of shade near the outer wall of your house. Your meal is simple. A dense, flat corn cake baked on a hot stone over the open hearth. Beside it, a piece of roasted catfish pulled fresh from the river just hours ago. Diet in this sprawling metropolis relies entirely on the earth and the water. Corn is the absolute center of your existence. Corn, squash, sunflower seeds, native amaranth. These crops are grown in massive, meticulously organized fields stretching far outside the city palisade. To feed tens of thousands of hungry mouths every single day, farmers use a brutal but highly effective method: slash and burn agriculture. They clear vast tracts of ancient forests with fire, turning the charred wood into rich fertilizer for the soil. Meat is a welcomed occasional luxury. You might get fresh venison from white-tailed deer hunted in the surrounding woodlands, but mostly your daily protein comes from the dark water: heavy catfish, alligator gar, massive sturgeon. The Mississippi River provides endlessly. It is not just a source of food or drinking water. It is the great ancient highway of North America. Thousands of canoes travel up and down its muddy currents daily, bringing exotic marine shells, raw copper, and endless supplies of grain to the city center. You chew your corn cake and wash it down with a highly caffeinated black drink brewed from roasted holly leaves. You are fully fueled for the afternoon labor. But here is where it gets truly fascinating. How do the elite rulers know exactly when to clear the sprawling fields? How do they predict the precise moment to plant the sacred corn before the killing frosts arrive to destroy the city food supply? You look out toward the western edge of the bustling city. Rising proudly from the flat ground is a massive, perfect circle of towering wooden pillars. Dozens of massive red cedar posts, meticulously stripped of their bark and painted entirely with vibrant red ochre. This is the Cahokia Woodhenge. It is not just a mystical monument built for blind worship. It is a highly advanced, mathematically precise scientific instrument, a sprawling prehistoric solar calendar. The elite priests use this giant wooden circle to track the exact, predictable movements of the sun across the Midwestern sky. They watch closely as the morning light aligns perfectly with specific outer posts relative to a central observation point. They carefully mark the spring and autumn equinoxes. They record the longest and shortest days of the year at the summer and winter solstices. Their astronomical observations dictate absolutely everything in this urban metropolis: when to burn the fields, when to plant the seeds, when to harvest the crops, when to hold the massive citywide festivals honoring the earth and the sky. Without this wooden calendar, the delicate agricultural cycle collapses completely. If the cycle collapses, 20,000 people starve in the brutal winter. The priests up there are not just spiritual leaders chanting into the void. They are master astronomers. They possess an intimate, highly complex understanding of celestial mechanics passed down through generations of careful, silent observation. They built an intricate, functional observatory out of nothing but packed earth and heavy timber to map the heavens perfectly. It is a stunning, undeniable display of indigenous scientific genius, functioning flawlessly centuries before modern instruments ever touched this continent. Late afternoon shadows stretch across the packed earth. A deafening roar echoes through the dense urban grid. You follow the thunderous noise toward the very heart of the metropolis. You emerge into the Grand Plaza. This is the ancient equivalent of a massive national stadium. It is a staggering 50 acres of perfectly leveled, artificially compacted dirt. Thousands of residents are packed along the edges. Men, women, and children are screaming at the top of their lungs. The sheer volume rattles your bones. You push your way to the front of the frantic crowd. You are clutching your freshly carved marine shells. You are ready to wager your hard-earned labor. Out on the flat expanse, the main event is already underway. This is Chunkey. Two elite athletes stand at the starting line. Their bodies are painted. Their muscles are coiled tight. One warrior holds a perfectly polished, heavy stone disc. The other grips a massive, carefully balanced wooden spear. The crowd suddenly holds its collective breath. The disc is violently hurled across the hard dirt floor. It rolls furiously, kicking up a blinding trail of fine dust. The athletes explode forward in a dead sprint. They chase the runaway stone with terrifying speed. They do not aim at the disc itself. They hurl their heavy spears high into the air, calculating the exact trajectory of the rolling target. They must predict precisely where the stone will eventually tip over and stop. The heavy wooden shafts crash into the dirt. The crowd erupts into an absolute frenzy. The athlete whose spear lands closest to the stopped stone claims ultimate victory. You scream until your throat is raw, tossing your carved shells onto a growing pile of wagers. The betting culture in this city is absolutely relentless. People do not just wager simple trinkets or extra portions of food. They gamble with a terrifying, reckless intensity. You watch a farmer wager his highly valuable flint tools. Another man bets his entire winter supply of dried venison without a second thought. And here is the brutal, mind-boggling twist to this afternoon's entertainment. When the competitive frenzy reaches its absolute peak, desperate citizens will go to unimaginable extremes. They will bet their own wattle and daub houses. They will wager their ancestral land. Sometimes, they will even bet their personal freedom, willingly enslaving themselves over a single poorly thrown spear. The stakes are unimaginably high. Yet, this violent, high-risk spectacle serves a vital stabilizing purpose for the sprawling metropolis. Bringing tens of thousands of diverse people together creates dangerous internal friction. Chunkey acts as the ultimate pressure valve for the entire civilization. It channels bitter rivalries between different neighborhoods and distinct kin groups into controlled, highly ritualized athletic warfare. Instead of killing each other in the cramped streets, they battle it out on the packed dirt of the Grand Plaza. The elite rulers intentionally orchestrate these massive games to maintain absolute social order. It binds the population together through shared adrenaline and collective obsession. You watch the exhausted winner proudly collect his staggering pile of wealth. The loser slumps in total devastation, stripped of everything he owns. The raw energy is wildly intoxicating. The deafening cheering echoes against the towering earthen walls of Monks Mound. You feel completely alive. You feel deeply connected to this pulsing grid of humanity. But the roaring excitement of the plaza masks a terrifying vulnerability. Now, listen carefully to this next part. The sun finally drops below the distant horizon. The deafening roar of the Grand Plaza slowly fades into a haunting silence. The massive cooking fires burn down to glowing red embers. Total darkness entirely swallows the sprawling metropolis. There are no glowing streetlights illuminating these winding dirt paths. You walk back to your small, cramped home, shivering in the freezing shadows. You pull the heavy animal hide tightly across your doorway and secure it carefully. Out there, just beyond the massive wooden defensive palisade, the wilderness remains vast and unforgiving. Wild animals prowl heavily through the dense, dark forests. Rival indigenous factions might be watching closely from the distant tree line. You lie down on your rough woven mat, listening to the bitter wind howl through your thatched roof. You close your exhausted eyes, feeling the heavy physical toll of the day pull you deep under. You fall deeply asleep, fully believing that this magnificent, invincible empire will last forever. But what happens next is one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in human history. You have absolutely no idea that you are actually living in the twilight of an ancient superpower. Within just a few short generations, this entire booming metropolis will be completely abandoned. The bustling plazas will fall dead and silent. The wooden houses will rot and crumble back into the muddy earth. Why did tens of thousands of people suddenly pack up and leave? The massive population simply demanded too much from the fragile environment. Decades of relentless deforestation to build homes and defensive walls completely stripped the surrounding landscape, sparking catastrophic soil erosion. Then, a brutal shift in the global climate brought severe, prolonged droughts that utterly decimated their sacred corn harvests. Depleted resources meant devastating starvation, which likely ignited violent internal rebellions. The society collapsed entirely under its own massive weight. They eventually walked away into the uncharted wilderness, scattering in every direction. Because they possessed no formal written language, they left behind absolutely zero explanations for their disappearance. Long before the very first European explorers ever sailed toward this continent, a monumental American city rose to unmatched glory and vanished without a single whisper. So, that was 24 hours in ancient Cahokia. Not the empty plains of popular myth, a real, living, breathing metropolis. They built a monumental empire from mud and wood that rivaled the greatest cities on Earth. Today, busy modern interstates run directly over their buried plazas in Illinois. We commute right past the ghosts of America's first great metropolis without even realizing it. Reconstructing these forgotten worlds takes an enormous amount of research and time. If you enjoyed this journey into the ancient American heartland, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What lost civilization should we explore next?